Well, Smiles from Black Film TV. Christine, you're having so much fun with this role. Is there anything you wanted to add outside what the script called for?
Gosh, I if I had my druthers because I adored each and every actor. I wish I'd had a lot of other work with some of the actors with whom I had no contact. I had virtually nothing with King Princess, virtually nothing with Maisie. Mark Strong and I, just a few exchanges. I mean, I think we all felt that we could have stayed there longer just for the pleasure of playing off of each other in different ways.
Mhm. How about you, Annie? This as actors, obviously, you work on projects where you're meeting people for the first time. You get to find out things about each other, much like the characters in this series and season. What did you guys do to get all connected?
We all moved to Munich for 6 months and moved away from our friends and our family and our homes. And that'll do it. That'll bond a group of people pretty quickly. And we were very lucky to have the group that we had. We were all so thrilled to be there, so grateful to be there, and eager to, fall in love with each other and work together and figure script stuff out and play around. And so, yeah, we bonded really quickly, and we were very lucky for that.
Ross, your character's the one with the unofficial invite, so he brings a little bit of mystery to him. How much more can you say?
Uh, about mystery, I don't want to talk about it because I'm a little bit scared to give some spoiler points. So, but that was generally a fan character, and yeah, like this. I don't know.
Between Christina and Annie, obviously this mom and daughter dynamic here, that it's always something that's never perfect in harmony. What did you guys do to so that we, the audience, can feel there's a mother-daughter relationship there somewhere?
Oh, well, I I think and if you observe it early on, you can see that both women are really, really smart and sassy and got great senses of humor. They're really both witty women. And, without acknowledging it, I think they do appreciate that in each other. I love the fact that I have a daughter who's whip smart and so kind of dazzling. It's often intimidating to me because she doesn't, she's at odds with me, but I think there's a lot there that's similar that you know, is surprising.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
think Imogen, as fraught as their relationship is, I think all Imogen ever wanted was to be loved and admired and accepted by her mom, who she idolizes so much. So that was a really kind of heartbreaking and very
Hmm.
fun dynamic to play.
Hmm.
Outside of production, how much fun did you have in Germany? Had you been there before? And if not, did you have time to go explore?
Oh,
Oh boy, we had
we had
nothing but time.
we had lots of time to explore.
It
Was
was
there anything was there any place in particular you remember fondly that you say, okay, you have to go here when people recommend, when you're telling people, if they're telling you they're going to go to Germany, what do you recommend for them to go see?
First, I think they should drink a lot of German beer
yeah.
in Augustin Keller or something. There's a beautiful view and
There are
beautiful.
beer
Yeah,
gardens, but
yeah,
I was telling my colleagues that they really at least once should go hear the Munich Symphony because it's one of the great orchestras in
yeah.
the world. And people in Germany, certainly in Munich, people get dressed to the nines to go to the opera. There's not a empty seat in the house. It's something cultural that they do. And I was at the opera house as often as I could, so that was a big gift to me being a music lover.
And then the polar opposite of that is what I did a lot, which was go to the English Gardens
Oh
in the
yeah,
middle of Munich. And
Oh,
there's
oh
this
yeah,
beautiful, beautiful river running through that you
yes.
can
yeah.
actually swim in.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Imagine that. And everyone just plunks down with picnics and puts their beer in the river to cool off. And
beautiful.
we spent a lot of time in the park too. It was amazing.
Mm.
I will take note, but in the meantime, being that the show is weekly at some point, it's good for people to talk about each episode, the festival, what's going to happen next. So congrats on the rose and the series. Take care.
Good
Thank you
night.
Thank
so
you,
Bye
much.
bye.
Ashley.
Bye.
Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. Hello, folks. How's it going?
Hi,
Good.
Wilson.
Good to meet you.
The King Princess. Obviously, this is a new what am I saying? I'm lost for words. This is something new for you. So how did this cast, Murray and Dolly, make you feel comfortable?
They went above and beyond. When I say I'm new at this, truly, like I had never ever delivered lines on camera. Because in music, I think the biggest thing with like music video, which to some degree is acting, I would say there's a lot of acting that goes into that, but you're looking into camera, directly, and that was like I was starting from there. Like, don't look in the camera. Like I was starting from girl, stop looking at it. So when I got there, and I was given the beautiful experience of like we FaceTimed and I got to ask you questions and
Yeah, before we started shooting.
it was fabulous. I don't think I could have done it without these people. Everybody encouraged me and hoisted me up, but never made me feel dumb.
But can I just say that KP doesn't need anyone's help? She is so gifted, so talented. She was just like a pro. Like she's done it so many times.
We were blown away. She's
Promise.
extraordinary, and she's so great in the show.
I was using the fake it till you make it methodology.
Hey,
Well, it works.
as it always
I think
goes.
Stella Adler invented that.
There's a line, that line always works. For you, Mary, obviously there are moments where you're by yourself. Was it like theater where you have to do a bunch of things and it's all about your emotions?
With Jesse.
Yeah, because you're always talking with Jesse.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, was I really alone though when I was with Jesse? I don't know. I think it's such a rich character, this character Brian that I got to play, and so and it's so well written in that there are like moments of great scenes with other people, but then you get to see him in private moments and see the kind of pain that he's going through. And what I loved about that is it's really fleshed out, this character in the way that it's written, like that you do see him in private moments, you do see him in public, you do see this whole progression of what he's going through. And that's just a beautiful thing as an actor, to be able to play all those different kind of levels and kind of facets of a character. And private moments are often when you get to reveal things, so they're kind of jewels.
Dolly, you're like the mystery. You come in there and we really don't know what we're getting out of your character. How much more can you say? No spoilers given.
Let me just say that this show is about the emancipation of Agnes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. That's all I can say.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. So, as actors, when you work on different projects, you're always meeting new people. You're trying to get to know each other, much like the characters on this season. What did you guys do all together to get to know each other?
We hung out. I think it's as simple as that. Acting is one of the last collaborative artistic mediums. You need everyone to get it done. You need the crew, you need the people on set building, making these worlds for us, you need the costuming, and you need each other, And I think that what I fell in love with, aside from the acting part, was the camaraderie. And I think we all just stepped up for each other and became a family.
Yeah, we went on walks at the park. We went out for drinks.
You watched my dog for a week.
I watched Raz, her dog, for a weekend, who I miss so much. And we hung out. We spent a lot of time together, even on set, just chatting and talking about life.
And you're right. There's something really kind of magical about a show like this called Nine Perfect Strangers. And none of us knew each other, really before this. So we were the nine strangers coming together. So there was a kind of a mirroring of what was going on in the show and what was going on in our lives. And fortunately, it was a love fest and we all connected in a beautiful way. And
but we didn't really get along.
We didn't, yeah. They're forcing us to sit next to each other. We did binge The L Word together, though, with bonding. Yeah.
The beauty about a weekly show is that people are intrigued and that gives them time to fester each episode to see what's going to happen next. Because with this season, you don't know what's going to happen. So congrats on the series. We'll talk about it week by week to see how it ends. Take care.
Amazing. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. Hello, Maisie. How's it going?
Hi, so good. How are you?
I was telling the others, obviously this is not based on the book, so there's nothing you can go with, so this is a new series, new season actually at that. How would you best describe Rufy?
Wolfie is a codependent, slightly neurotic, lost mess at the beginning. I think she's completely disintegrated herself into this relationship. She doesn't really have a sense of identity at the moment. And you find her at that breaking point, that real breaking point. And she's invested everything in Tina, and Tina is no longer performing. So both of their lives, it's like two rocks sinking into the ocean. And she's trying desperately to swim to the surface with both of them. And she goes on this journey of unveiling and revealing, and she faces herself for the first time and really comes to terms with who she is, what that means, and what are the consequences of seeing yourself after hiding for 6 years.
When you take a character like this, I would say for any actor, there's got to be something in the character that they're playing that they can relate with. How do you relate to this one?
Oof, this was a tricky one. I'm not gonna lie. I think I pulled on personal experiences, friends' experiences, stories I've read, and kind of made a mesh together of all of that. But I think it's all about the why, right? On the surface, I don't really understand why she's so subservient and, I don't know. For me, it's hard to understand it. But once you get to the truth of it, it's basic things like wanting to be loved, having a passion for something and not being able to feel good enough at it. They're very basic feelings which have just gotten out of control. So those are the bits that I relate to in moments of my life.
You're working opposite King Princess. Obviously, this is a first for her that people will see. What did you guys do, at least more or less of you, because you're mostly in scenes with her, to navigate her new transition into this field?
Yeah, I mean, we met up before we even started filming, and we hung out, we spoke about all the lines, we ran everything. We basically directed the whole scenes ourselves in my living room in New York. And then by the time we got to set, we'd already done all that work, so we could kind of just have fun and live in the moment with it. And I think because she'd never done it before, she's very instinctual rather than sort of intellectualizing it as like as much of a craft. It's more just, I'm here, this is my character, let's be. And so I got to just be with her. And I think that was a great lesson to get out of your head sometimes and just follow your instincts.
As actors, when you work on different projects, there's always a majority of people you've never met before. And with this series, there's a bunch of people, strangers, as we call them, as we know it, that don't know each other. So what was that set like, playing a character where you're meeting other people when you normally do it when you have a job?
I mean, it's great. You jump in and my first scene with Nicole was the kind of big confrontation scene in episode 4 where Wolfie and Tina finally have it out. And I think what a way to meet someone, in your biggest scene of the show. And she was brilliant. And, you just trust. It's basically like a constant trust fall doing these kind of things. And it makes really strong friendships very, very quickly. So within the first week, you feel like they're family, even though you don't necessarily know them on a deep level yet.
And before I let you go, what goes into saying yes to the projects you take? Is it the location? Is it who you're working with? Is it the role, the script? Well, I know people can say it's all of them, but is there one thing you look for?
It's the character. It's a good arc. Feeling like that you meet them as one person and you leave them as someone else. And it's the team. I want to work with directors who challenge me and inspire me, and actors that I know will help me grow.
It's good talking to you. Obviously, people will be intrigued to see how each episode goes because they have nothing to base it on. So I always say, listen, every episode you find out who to trust, who not to trust.
Yeah, absolutely. It's chaos. And who you think you
Yes,
trust is not who you should trust. So just don't hold on to anything too tight.
exactly. Have a good one.
Take care.
Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. Hello, folks. How's it going?
Hi, it's
Hey,
going quite
Wilson.
well.
How are you?
Since this season is obviously not based on the book, you're playing with new territory here. Come in saying that, how much stock do you take into the characters you're playing in terms of its occupation? Do you do a little bit of research or you're just going by what the script says? Lena?
I do research, and it's interesting because the occupation is often that tells so much about a person. Either they've had to compromise to do something that they don't want to do, or they have followed their passion. And I think for somebody in the field, the scientist Helena is, I think it's based on her own suffering. That, if you see a really interesting and great psychiatrists, it's usually that they've been through trauma themselves, and that's why they went into that field. And I think that's certainly true for Helena, that she's been suffering a great deal, and that's why she has kept going. She was brought up with science and she has kept going, but she wants to help people with mental issues.
I feel like Martin's almost the inverse of that in terms of
he was
like
forced.
forced
Yeah.
into it, and therefore maybe he chose that path of pharmacology because there at least he can hide away from the stuff that he's creating.
Yeah.
He's still doing it, but he doesn't have to see himself in some kind of a mirror existence of a psychology. I approached it with I have a friend of mine who works at the hospital in Vienna. He's a cardiologist, and he referred me to some people who work in pharmacology, and so that was how I kind of like understood a bit about how people work in that field. And then a lot of reading about just some psilocybin science, and about listening to the Andrew Huberman podcast, for example. That was a really big inspiration, especially to love those things to that degree of like, the chemicals and the dopamine and this and this, and then many other materials, but they don't have to do with science.
But much like the characters you're playing, it's a bunch of people just getting to know each other. What was the set like when you're filming, and most of you have never met each other before?
Did I meet any of these people before? No, not really. But that's always the case. And there's an instant familiarity and there's an instant connection with some people and most people, actually, because we're all actors and we all have the same setup a little bit. So I think that's one of the nice things with this profession, that you come into a room and you connect with a bunch of people and you become almost like family for a short time. And some you keep and some you let go. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing with our profession, I think.
I feel like with Martin, I wanted to be close to people, and I was lucky that like obviously I'm also Lucas, but like I felt like Martin was a weird guy to live inside of myself, and there was a you okay?
Yeah, thanks.
There was kind of feeling of being an outsider, and somehow I couldn't let go of that feeling on set, which is nothing that the others created because they were always inclusive and always loving.
Yeah.
But I kind of took that path, and I'm happy to now just be here with everybody together and just hang out and just be who we are. And that's really nice.
Because the strangers were a group. They were the strangers.
Yeah.
And we weren't.
Yeah.
We were just
And
it's an interesting series. People are going to get a kick out of this because obviously they don't have a book to get based on. So every episode is going to be seeing where it's going to go. So for the audience, they'll be intrigued just as I was. Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
much. Have a lovely day.
Thanks.
Bye.